How long's it been in the bag?
So about 3 days after it became conforming.
Okay.
What was that? October 6th or something?
6th or 8th.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
So I
That's
put
right.
I put it in the day that it was able to be conforming. So it happened to be overseas in Malaysia.
Oh,
I
nice.
used it for my first event. And I think I finished May 20 something over there and 14th
Nice.
in Korea. So I had 2 great finishes the first 2 weeks with it.
So you did some testing with Jeff down at the Players, right? Or down at TPC, I should say.
Yeah, it was kind of it was during the fall series and the end of the tour championship. So just kind of had time to reset and kind of think about what I need to do better. And driving was my best category last year. So kind of went down there thinking I'm good with what I have. I like everything. And I was beyond surprised when I put this in the bag. It was faster, straighter, more forgiving. It was the easiest change I've ever made in club switch on the one club I never thought I would switch. So it's saying a lot. And I've used it ever since and haven't even considered taking it out.
That's awesome. I mean, as someone who doesn't historically like to change, so you went in almost skeptical, right?
Yeah, I went in just doing Cookie a favor to walk down and hit his driver for him and give him some numbers and leave, and then I left with a new driver. So
Did you have any moments where you were like, maybe this was just on the range and it wasn't going to work, or?
Well, I tested it on the Mizuno TrackMan and with all their equipment and everything, and it was better. Then I brought it here and did some independent testing on it, and it was better that way too. So it was the easiest no-brainer switch I've ever made.
And how long had you had your other driver in the bag?
Probably a year and a half to 2 years, and I'd cracked a bunch of heads, and I just kept going back to the same one, and it was great. I used it it got me on the PGA Tour and had a great first year on tour with it, but hopefully this one will have even better ones.
Absolutely. Let's hit a couple. Nice. So driving's always been one of your strong suits, right?
It has been, and I've been fortunate to be blessed with some good club head speed, and as long as I can keep it in the fairway, then I'm using it to my advantage. And you know, that's what I've always worked on, is keeping the spin down and trying to work it left to right. A lot of times, a lot of new technology is based for hitting it high in a draw, where I kind of hit down on it and like to see it fade. So I've always had some difficulties in terms of finding a driver that fit my game. But with there's 2 new drivers that came out, and one's more fade bias and draw bias, in my opinion.
Right.
And what I use, and this driver helped me do that without compromising the technology in the head.
It's funny, you say you want to keep your spin down, but you also you hit down and you hit a cut, both things that increase spin.
Right, I think it's just the speed at which I hit it adds so much spin.
Right.
I mean, I use a golf ball that has very little spin. I use a shaft that has very little spin, and a head that has a lot of face weight in it. Just because of the speed that I'm hitting the ball, if it has too much spin, it starts rising this way.
Right.
And I can always play a flat cut and be fine. If the fairways are firm, it's going to go a while, and if the fairways are wet, then everybody's hitting it shorter. So it doesn't really matter.
Right. Cool. It's got some speed.
That was a little bit more solid than the last one.
How do you feel you are distance-wise, just compared to the tour? Or do you feel like you're typically the long guy in your group, or?
Typically, I would say on a day-to-day basis, I'm probably one of the longer players. I'm not optimal compared to what a TrackMan would tell you to do. I probably could gain some distance if I hit up on it and hit a straighter ball flight, but I don't hit it in the fairway as much when I do that. And so I usually I hit it far enough that I can sacrifice some distance for some accuracy and it not affect my game. And so, if I need to put a little extra on something for a carry and there's a wide fairway, I'll sometimes try to manipulate a little bit, but that's very rare.
What happens when you hit up on it? Well,
the driver that I have, and it's made for me, it doesn't really turn over as much.
Yeah.
I mean, I really have to work on it to get it turned over and stay in the air, just because it doesn't have enough spin to do that.
Right.
So it'll have to be a really warm day. I'll have to tee it up a little bit higher, have a little extra in that backswing.
Yeah.
But we can see if we can do one today. It's a little chilly, but we might be able to pull one out of here. Ooh, see? That's why I hit down on it and to the left, right there.
And that's the shot you just want to avoid. And
Absolutely.
typically,
if
yeah.
I can keep that left side of the fairway out of it, then I'm in good shape. And hitting that cut and starting it on the left and bringing it back is usually my go-to shot. I can hit it anywhere. And honestly, there's been times where it might be a driver hole, but there's some trees or something on the left. I'll just take 3-wood out and just hit it up there and get in the fairway, because that happens so rare these days that I just stick with my shot and just go with it.
Yeah. $178.
Listen, it's a cold day.
It's a cold day, and it's still 178.
It's a cold day, and he hasn't hit any since RSM.
Right.
A month and a half ago.
Yeah. But anyway, I would say my tournament speed, especially in warm weather, is always faster than the range speed, just because of adrenaline and things like that, and your body's been moving all day. So that's tough sometimes when you fit yourself on the range, that your tournament swing might be a little bit different. And for amateurs, it's the same. It might be slower on the course or faster on the range. It's very different. So the key to fitting a driver is find something that works on the range, but then you got to take it on the course. You got to put it in play.
And that's what you said you did.
Right, exactly. I took it, I've tested it, all the numbers were better on the range, but I brought it home, played with it a bunch on the golf course, and was just seeing the same results. So when you do that, it's fine. And then I put it in tournament, and it was even better, because once I started swinging even faster and faster, this head was able to control it, and it just kept it in the fairway, and it was awesome.
Have you had it where you test something and, hey, this is a great range club, then you get out and it's just something's not right on the course?
Yeah, sometimes when you have a range, you have the free will of swinging and not really worrying about where it's going. And so a driver can be less forgiving on the range, and then you take it on the golf course and you miss one or two, and then it's very, it's amplified.
Right.
So this club, is very, very forgiving. So when I didn't hit it well on the golf course, it was still in the fairway. And that was when I really knew it was a good club.
How much are you influenced by what other guys are playing out there?
I mean, nowadays there's so many good clubs out there that it's not as big of a deal. But if you see a trend where multiple guys that don't have club contracts start gravitating to one specific club, that's when you know. Because those guys aren't paid necessarily to play that club, and they're all using the same thing. That's when you know it might be a little bit better.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had an open-ended a lot of on my clubs, and this was the absolute best on the market at the time. And
well, it's funny. I feel like you've been one who kind of started one of these trends on tour right now, where it's you took a chance on it, and all of a sudden it feels like there's momentum gaining on tour with this club.
Exactly, and it's a lot of, like I said, a lot of guys that don't have driver contracts coming up. A lot of them are starting to use this club because they see what I see, that it's great, and it's got a lot of speed and it's got a lot of forgiveness. So, I mean, I'm more than pleased, and I think a lot of guys out there are as well.
That's great. Really good numbers.
As good as I got on a day like today.
Yeah, exactly. So had you tried Mizuno drivers in the past?
Yes, I remember the last one that you had out the numbers were pretty good on it. The look of it wasn't nearly as good as this one. This is one of the drivers that when you look at it, before you even hit it, you like it, and you feel like you got a good chance. And that's a big thing with guys, that if they don't like the way it looks, when you look down at it, it's not a good start.
Right.
And that's a tough battle to fight, because I mean, you got to look at it every time and be confident in it. But this one, thank goodness, just looks incredible. I mean, I like the shape of it, I like the color of it especially, and so that's step number one. So when you put it down and you like the way it looks, you got a good start. Then if it performs well, it's a no-brainer.
Right. Did you hit this is the standard ST190, and then we also have the G with the movable weights. Did you try both of those?
I
when you were
did. I like
testing?
the way, is it the G? Is that the other? I like the way the sound. It had a great sound and a great look. But I wasn't able to shape the shot that I like to normally hit as well as
Right.
this one. Everything about it was great other than if I was a draw player
Yep.
and you can move those weights exactly where you needed to, probably make Kyle's job easier than having to put a bunch of glue in here. But if I could carry 2 drivers, it'd be great. I'd just use that hole in the right to left holes.
So if you felt like this is the fade one and that's the draw one?
Well, for me personally, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's, I don't want to put that stereotype on everyone, but for me and my shaft characteristics and my weight characteristics, that's just kind of how it ended up.
Cool.
Can we hit another one?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Great ball there. It's such a flat trajectory for for a fast ball speed. Typically, you're used to seeing that type of ball speed get way up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I might be a smidge higher than normal. I mean, just with the cold and all the layers on it, you can't get quite around it, which is so tough for us when you have to go to different environments. I mean, we went from Malaysia this year, which was 100 degrees and humid, and the ball's going forever to the very next week we go to Korea. And I mean, I had hand warmers and 4 layers on. I mean, my entire clubs changed everything. Like my distances were changing, my trajectories were changing, and so that's what's fun about when you travel so much and play in different environments and different grasses, that you really have the ability to change, and you have to figure it out. And
do you try to put math to it? Like, do you try to get like on TrackMan?
I don't.
Range?
I don't. I mean, I think guys like us have played enough that you should know that, and if not, and you're relying on the machine to tell you what to do, then, I mean, good luck. I mean, I know people do it, and so I'm not saying it's wrong.
Right.
But I mean, I've played enough in cold weather and hot weather that I can kind of tell how far the ball's going.
Do you make any adjustments ever to your clubs between setups, between tournaments?
No, I don't. I mean, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've done it since I've turned pro, and I just think if you have a good club, that it should work in everything. It might not be great in one week, but if you start changing every week, you could just get lost, because every grass is different, every weather is different, and it might rain one day and it might not the next, and then all of a sudden you're trying to switch and you're carrying 2 sets of clubs with you all the time.
Right.
I just think that it's not as easy. So I mean, I've worked with Kyle and Cookie on getting my set exactly how we need it. We got all our numbers on a sheet of paper and in a computer, and about once a month, I would say.
Check off the lines. That's it.
Yeah,
we put new grips on occasionally.
Yeah.
The nice thing, it sounds like you just try to minimize variables out there.
Exactly.
It's like,
there's enough already. I mean, why add more?
Right.
So it's been very helpful. They have the truck out there, and we can walk in, and they have the machine. And I mean, I know they calibrate it about once a year, so it makes everything very, very simple. Only time I change my clubs is when I change them back to what they were supposed to be.
Right. So when you set up a driver, do you know in one swing, hey, this is going to work, this is not going to work?
2 swings.
2 swings?
Because I might hit my first swing might not be my best swing, which oftentimes is good, because if you don't make your best swing and the ball goes in the fairway, that's great. And then you make your next one, which is good, and it goes in the fairway, then you know.
Right.
So if you make a good swing, a first good swing, and it doesn't feel right,
it's out.
Then it's, I might give it another shot.
Right.
I'm already thinking in my head it's not the one.
Right.
So.
No, that's really cool. Let's hit one more, and then.
Yep, that's all you got.
Perfect.
Perfect. I'm glad I said one more, not 2 more.
Oh, this one's hot, Cookie. You had it in there nice, and your pants in there getting it warm.
There we go. That's got some height on it. Yeah, it's great numbers.
Perfect.
Yep.